Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with a very special guest. Brother, if you don't mind, just introduce yourself. Let them know your full name and all the good stuff in between.
Gotcha. So my name is Donte Woods-Spikes. I am a Focus Learning Academy East alumni. Right now I'm currently doing professional speaking. I am an author. I am a documentarian, and I'm also an educator.
That's awesome, man. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for sitting down with me, brother. I appreciate you. I watched actually one of your talks earlier, so we'll dive into that a little bit as we progress through the conversation. But what's crazy is I didn't even know that you were an alumni until they told me that you were coming today. So if you could give me like some of the good memories that you have of being at Focus, maybe like 2 to 3, just some things that pop into your head when you think about your experience here at the school.
Yeah, so one of the memories I had when Focus first opened up, I was one of the original students the year that Focus opened up, is we slowly began expanding and figuring out what the next steps were when it comes to the students. And I saw the educators brainstorming and coming up with different ideas to support us in our journey to graduate. The perception of the school at the time was we were students that didn't have anything, we weren't gifted, or we just were struggling inside of school. Some of those could have been true, but that wasn't always the story for every student. Some kids just needed someone to care about them. And the staff at the time were very caring and supportive and made sure that we weren't just brought into a school and told to do our schoolwork, but we came to a place where we had like a family atmosphere. So I remember immediately feeling like I was a part of a family and consistently watching them tell us what we can do, what we're capable of, and also create that space for us inside of the school. Another memory I have is even with that type of support, it still was a challenge for me to trust and feel comfortable all of the time. I remember having some battles with mental health, and one of the educators had pointed out that she observed that I was depressed. And I'm like, depressed? I ain't depressed. I'm just having a bad day. But I was having a bad day every day, and I didn't know why. So when she pointed out that I was depressed, she actually helped me understand what it meant. She helped connect me to resources, and she gave me an opportunity to identify what it meant and the steps that I could take to no longer feel that depression, or to recognize when it was happening, how I can address it and get back to my best self. Understanding that it's something that I may live with, but it's also something that I can address when I feel it. That was my first experience understanding myself on a deeper level when I didn't feel like I was the best version of me. There's some things that we done that was pretty interesting. I remember not having money at the time. You know, you being a 14, 15, 16-year-old black boy with no money, you start thinking, I want clothes, I want food, I want things that I need, but I don't have any money. And the educators just stepping up, being prepared to give us food, or say like, you know what, you've been doing good. We're going to take you to get some shirts and some clothes, or donating clothes to us. I remember those moments where those severe thoughts and basic needs that weren't being met, they stepped up and gave those things to us. So those were a few things I remember being in Focus, and what helped shape and mold me to become the person that I am today.
I want to backtrack just a little bit because you talked about the family atmosphere that you felt being a part of Focus community. And that's something that we try to emphasize here now, is just making people feel like they are part of a family. Do you feel like that's one of the elements that's missing in some of the other schools that you maybe have been a part of or visited? What do you think is some of the challenges that they're facing in other places as far as being able to connect with people on that level, making them feel like family?
The biggest challenge I feel people are up against in educational spaces is figuring out how to create this family-like atmosphere for the students and also the educators. The first thing you should do is just allow people to be themselves and then build on top of that, and not do that in reverse. Coming up with an idea and a concept and saying this is what we're going to go with, and then putting it into the atmosphere for the educators and students. When they're not a part of the creative process, it's difficult for them to adapt if it's not something that really works for them. So what I like about Focus is it's a student first model that gives them insight, input, and the ability to say, this is who I am, this is how we show up, this is what I would like to do, and then building on top of that, that creates a family-like atmosphere that everyone feels comfortable in. And even if things don't go as planned, you know that the foundation is solid. It's not something that lacks humanization. When I'm included in the process of whatever is taking place, if it's not going according to plan, I know how to get back to a sense of understanding. I don't have to feel like there's a never-ending process of trying to figure out how do we fix this. If it's a family, people are going to work together. If it's not a family, it's going to be a struggle. So the family-like atmosphere gives everyone a chance to feel like they're a part of anything that happens. If something is off track, we can get back on track. If it is on track, we all feel like we're a part of it. We all contributed to it. And that's what makes a space special and meaningful, when you give everyone a chance to contribute to creating a family-like atmosphere.
Absolutely, because we all have different gifts and abilities that will contribute to the student's overall experience being here.
Right.
So, where I may be weak at, somebody else has a skill set to be able to perform a little bit better and vice versa. So
Right.
I definitely agree with that. I want to ask you, and I understand Focus was a foundational part of your transition into public speaking and things like that, but I want to get kind of I guess a summary of your journey into public speaking. How did you recognize, first of all, that you had a gift to do that? And were there hurdles along the way as far as like maybe having the confidence to, step out there and actually pursue speaking engagements? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So I've always been thoughtful, but I struggled to be vocal. I was a quiet kid in school, but my mind was consistently racing, having thoughts, feelings, and emotions. But not everyone is taught how to use their words. You can feel things, but you don't know how to speak up. Once I came to Focus, I began engaging with not only peers, but the educators as well, because they weren't too much older than I was. They were probably 6 to 10 years older than me, which gave me an opportunity to engage with someone that was aware of what was going on. And this is around the time where the concept of mental health was being pushed and talked about and explored more, versus just the academic aspect of a student showing up, doing the schoolwork, and going home. This was the beginning focus of how do we engage with the whole student. As I talked to my educators and the teachers that I developed relationships with, I noticed that I was doing much more talking than I usually would do, and it was dialogue. I'm sharing things that I've been thinking for years that I just never said out loud, right? And when I did that, I'm like, dang, I think I'm actually kind of good at this. I enjoy talking to people. And what they did for me is what I wanted to do for young people that I cross paths with as well. So what happened was I began volunteering at a church. And at that church, I started a teens group. Some of the same exact conversations that educators had with me here, I began having those same exact conversations with the young men that were a part of my group. And what I recognized was, now I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm gaining information and knowledge that I can throw together. And when a conversation comes up about young people and what they need, what they should do, how they should be, I can say, well, after talking to this group of young men, this is what they said they need. And this is how we can help them. And remembering those things and taking it with me to every space I've stepped in, has given me the ability to become a speaker. So that same process, that same blueprint, apply it to every single thing that I'm involved in. You have to listen first to know how to speak. You have to listen first. So working with those young men taught me how to listen to everything around me to prepare me when I would get on stage or when I'm in front of a group of people. I have all of the information I need and I can give it to them in a way where it's understood. You always want to talk to people as if you want them to understand you, not as if you want to showcase how intelligent you are, which is perfectly fine, but if people can't feel you, it doesn't matter what you say. So that opened up the door for me to begin telling stories and becoming a professional speaker where I've been able to get on stages. And I think what carries me is the organic part of the story that I'm sharing, the authenticity, the parts where I'm not certain about myself, the parts where I'm still learning. It's not always about being this expert. Sometimes it's about showcasing your humanity to people. And when you can do that, people feel much more close to you than they would a person that is telling them something that can feel like it's real far-fetched and out of their reach. I don't remember most of the speeches that people have given to me, but I remember what my teacher said at Focus because they were speaking to me with their heart. That's real.
That makes all the difference, man, when it's authentic and you're not trying to present this pretty polished version of yourself. Like you said, you're showcasing your humanity. And I think that's what makes people resonate with the message so much because they recognize that it's real. People know when stuff is phony, right?
Correct. They can see through it, especially young people, man.
Yeah, especially young people. You talked about some of your one-on-one interactions with young men. I know some people are gifted at both. They're comfortable with both. Are you more comfortable with like large group settings and speaking in those, or do you enjoy having one-on-one conversations more, or does it matter?
So, I love going to the large groups after having one-on-one conversations, but I love the one-on-one conversations because that's where you find out so much with young people. That's where they feel comfortable, and that's where they feel like there's trust. I'm not putting your story on display, and I'm not trying to use you as an example to make myself look good. I'm listening to you because I want to learn how I can stand up for you when I'm in rooms with large groups of people that are listening to me talk about young people. Far too often have I seen someone exploit a young person's story or take what a young person has shared and not properly value that. And you can lose a young person's trust when they feel like my story is being used in a way where you're making it seem like you're my hero, or you know everything about me, or you figured and solved something that you figured something out, or you solved a problem that you have not figured out or solved. You have to respect that one-on-one conversation and build that trust up. And sometimes straight up ask students like, are you comfortable with me taking your story and sharing it? Are you comfortable coming on stage with me and sharing? What you're sharing with me is giving me the power to ensure the next person that talks to you respects you the way that I do. You get that from the one-on-one conversation with young people. It's not easy to get that amount of depth and connection when you're dealing with large groups. There's so many things going on at once, but when you have that chance to sit down with a young person one-on-one and hear who they are and they feel comfortable and they trust you, you become one of the most intelligent human beings on the planet. Period.
I mentioned your TED Talk speech that I watched earlier, which was very inspirational to me and gave me a lot to think about. In that speech, you mentioned one of your earlier teachers that had a pretty profound effect on you during that time period. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was it he did that enabled you to have the freedom to step into this new role?
Once I graduated Focus, I still was developing who I was as a person and finding my identity. So I was comfortable here, but that transition to college and to different spaces was like a culture shock, because sometimes you find spaces where people embrace who you are, and then you go to spaces where people may not embrace who you are, and you might be one of the very few that are like you. You're one of the very few that are your race, that dress the way you dress, talk the way that you talk, feel the way you feel, come from the culture that you come from, and that creates a feeling of isolation. And when you feel isolated, you retreat into being silent. And as a person that was silent most of my childhood, I felt like Focus gave me an opportunity to speak, but once I left, I'm like, dang, I think it's time for me to be quiet again, because I don't know what to say to people that are nothing like me. And I don't necessarily know how to break that ice and share with people that I'm someone you can talk to. So in class, one of my professors had recognized that I was not as talkative. And there was a moment where he talked about the situations that are happening in poverty-stricken areas. And I'm learning like, oh, I'm from a poverty-stricken area. The definitions are being thrown out there now. And there was a slide that talked about statistics. And I kid you not, the slide that talked about statistics was talking about robbers, or, the negative things that happen in poverty-stricken areas. And it described me. And I said, wait a second now, that ain't me. That's not me at all. I had pulled him aside after class and told him that I understand that statistics are meant to showcase data analysis and what takes place, but it doesn't necessarily humanize the people from that community because it's only focused on one aspect. And afterwards he said, okay. And what he would do is, if something else came up similar to that, he would ask me in front of the classroom, Donte, what do you think about this? What's your opinion? How do you feel? And for some people that could be very uncomfortable and scary, but for me it was like my awakening, once again, to feel comfortable speaking in front of a group, because the authoritative figure has given me permission to do so. And I'm welcome into the space now. People can see me outside of feeling like an isolated human being or someone that's not connected like everyone else is. The odd man out. He brought me into the space, and when he gave me that opportunity to speak, I felt much more comfortable utilizing my voice and telling my story in front of people that are nothing like me. So after that, I just knew my voice was supposed to be in different rooms, in different spaces, at different conferences, in front of young people, in front of one person, in front of 30 people. I just knew it was time to start talking. And I have never went back ever since then.
It's incredible. What's one of your most memorable speeches that you've given?
Man, it's quite a few. What's interesting is you have some speeches that everyone knows about, and then there's speeches that people have no idea existed. So it was one that I gave, that I put together on my own, where I talked about the different experiences that I've had with the young men I worked with. But this one was about the young men that have passed away. And the young men that have passed away, talking about why it is important to get involved now and not wait and feel like you have to have a nonprofit, or you have to be a part of an organization, or you have to have a lot of money, or you have to create this big idea and concept. Sometimes just showing up is enough to help a young person stay alive a little bit longer, or to develop this belief that I have somebody in my life that cares about me, and I think I want to live. that was one of the best speeches I feel like I've given, because speaking on behalf of young men that have lost their lives and can no longer speak, but have given me the opportunity to continue telling their story because they sat down with me and shared who they were and what they believed they wanted in life, where they wanted to go, how they saw themselves in years to come, but their life was cut short. Being able to still tell their story and testimonies to people and give them insight and understanding what young people are asking for, to me, that was by far one of the best things I could ever do with my life. With my voice, but with my life. There is nothing that has topped that.
How do you cope with the loss of the ones that you can't save?
Man, it's one of those things where it's a roller coaster process of feeling like you can help and support young people, and there's those lows on the roller coaster where something will happen that lets you recognize that you're not always the savior, you're not always the hero, you're not always the problem solver. It may be later in life, once they go through the situations they're going through, even if you're talking to them, it might just come to life later for them that, man, Mr. Donte, I remember when we were talking about this. 5 years later it happened, but I know what you meant now. And unfortunately, there's some young men that I've worked with, or there's some young people that I've worked with that are no longer alive, and you have this immense feeling of guilt. You start thinking, I could have done so much more. I could have been present much more often. I could have called them that day I thought about them, but I didn't. You think of all of those things. You start trying to bargain ways that you can continue the legacy of this child and get them back. But you recognize that, once again, you're not always the hero or savior. And you have to use that to ensure that the next young person understands that you have their back at all costs. And you know how to do things better. Unfortunately, sometimes you don't always succeed in what you thought you would do with one young person. But sitting down, reflecting, and understanding that, you know the next time you engage with a young person, you know what to do better now.
So to the young person that is on the verge of losing their life, what would you say to them if they were in this room with you right now?
I would say that time consistently passes. The same way you get you might get a cut, fall, scrape your knee, or hit your head, and you feel that pain in that moment. But as time passes, whatever that cut or that scab, you stop bleeding, and you got a scab on your arm, and that scab falls off, and you got a little small scar right there and whatnot. You don't feel the pain no more, but you can look at the scar and be like, yeah, the scar is still there. I remember when, but you don't feel that pain. There are situations in life that are very similar to the scars that we get in life, or the moments where we might hit our head against something, or we feel like we're dealing with something that we can't overcome. But once we become more knowledgeable about self and the environment that we're in, there's things we can address that we feel like are impossible in the moment. And when you have people that care about you, don't feel embarrassed to open up and say, this is what I need help with. It's the silence that harms people. It's not always what's happening in the moment. It's the process of being silent for a long time and never saying what you know may be about to happen, and feeling like you got to address that on your own. You don't have to address that by yourself. You don't have to feel like you have to do everything by yourself. Young people aren't always listened to. If you find the people that are listening, please use your voice to talk to them about whatever it is you need help with. And when you do that, you can find that your life is valuable not because of the person that you're talking to, but because you found the power to speak up and share who you are. You don't have to do this thing called life by yourself.
I need your top 3 albums.
Ah!
Three of your favorite albums.
3 of my favorite albums. We allowed to. So I'm like a dude that's stuck in the '90s.
Okay.
I'm a '90s 2000, but I've really got into music around, I would say 2004 when I was 14, where I really just started getting into music. So it's no order, but Stankonia from Outkast. That's when I got into Outkast, and just I know that album from beginning to end. You can't tell me nothing about it. I love it. I'm the biggest fan of the album. I feel like it was their transition into, becoming like much more well known. They were known, but just getting the hits on the Billboard and whatnot. Bone Thugs and Harmony, Ohio, Cleveland, we Columbus, but Cleveland, those are our boys. That Eternal East 1999 album with First of the Month on it. That's right there. And my favorite rapper, Nas. A lot of people say his first album, but I actually like his second album, It Was Written. That is one of my favorite albums where I connected with it. I started diving into hip hop. I started diving into music, learned about a lot of artists that came before the music that I was listening to.
Yeah.
And when I landed on Nas, all the songs that I was listening to was on that album.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I Gave You Power. When I first heard that, that's when I'm like, okay, I can put him in the list.
Yeah. It's like, okay, bruh, you really flexing your lyrical ability in every possible way. You can talk about the stuff that's happening in the streets. You can, utilize your lyrics. You can give us imagery. You can do, things that are in poetry, your alliteration and enunciation. I'm like, bruh, this is a full spectrum of what I feel music is, embedded in one human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
so that's one of my favorite albums right there. So
it's a solid list.
Yeah, ain't none of them in order, but I listen to all types of music, but those 3 right there really define my taste in music and what I find to be full creativity of the individual. People have their own way of saying this is a good album or this is a great artist, but I love when artists can tap into a creativity that can't be duplicated. I feel like those 3 albums are things no one else could do, to even where they struggled to do it again themselves, or they had to do something different, because if you try to mimic that, you just can't. So those 3 albums right there stood out to me.
That's good. That's good. When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as somebody that just cared. Or I'll let me say this. Someone that asks me, why do you do the things you do? Why do you care? One of my goals in life is to be married and to have a family. And I just think about, if something happens to me where I can no longer be present for my family, my wife, my children, the way I would like to be, where my arms don't work like they used to, or my legs don't work like they used to, I will hope the favors in being present and support that I've given to my community, in that moment, they can care for the people that matter to me the way I tried to care for them. And it's not a tit for tat thing. It's just, these are the things that I value. And I don't know what day I won't be able to walk. I don't know the day I will no longer be alive. But I want people to say that this man has done such great things. Anyone that is connected to him, we want to support them the way he supported us. If you take care of the people in front of you, more than likely they want to do the same thing for you at some point in time. So I just hope that people know that I care, and that the imprint that I leave, it creates a legacy where the people that I care for the deepest have support and help the way that I've tried to give it to everyone around me.
One more question for you. Probably the most important question of the whole interview.
All right, let's go.
If you had to choose between apple juice and orange juice, which one you rocking with?
Apple juice.
My dog. We ain't gotta go no further.
Alright, cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Donte Woods-Spikes. I appreciate you sitting down with me. We're gonna be praying for you.
Thank you.
You part of the Focus family forever, man. We know you're gonna fly. You're already flying high. You know what I'm saying? So you're an inspiration to me. Everybody else is gonna be watching this video. So thank you again, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate you.